that what you do? The only thing I can't do is turn it sideways so I can follow the lines easier.
Always blaming something, huh?
Holy cow.
What's the matter?
No, you crack me up, man.
What, the way I have to read? Yeah. You know, I used to not be that way, you know, when I was younger. I had pretty good eyesight.
Too many falls out of a tractor?
Nah, probably too much beer.
We're all set, all good to go.
All right, we ready? Okay, we'll let you, our legalist, it's December the 8th at 1:30 in the afternoon, and we're gonna call the zoning board of appeals meeting to session, and we'll have our attorney read the legals as far as the Zoom and all that for us, and then we'll get started with the roll call. You don't got it?
Abby wants to.
Abby wants to read it? Okay.
Did you like me to do roll call?
You're
After-
saying
Or Brandon?
Read the Zoom legals
Oh, okay.
for everybody that's
Okay.
not with us.
I'm happy to do the order of business. All right. It's 1:30 PM, and we're calling the December 8th, 2021 meeting of the Area Board of Zoning Appeals to order. Before we begin, we have a few announcements. This meeting is being held in person and virtually in the fourth floor council chambers of the county city building with Zoom and video phone teleconferencing options available via links and phone information on our website at sjcindiana.com/abza. The meeting call-in number is 312-626-6799, and the meeting ID is 961-6443-3903, and the password is 543186. Due to issues with usages of video by persons viewing meetings, the county has determined that it is appropriate to require during virtual and partially virtual meetings that members of the public viewing meetings keep their microphones and cameras turned off. The host of the meeting will turn the members of the public microphones and cameras off. During portions of the meeting where public participation is permitted, the participating member of the public will have their microphone and camera, if any, turned on. If a member wishes to participate in the portion of the meeting, they should indicate this by using the raise hand feature in Zoom and/or by messaging the host in the chat function. Shelley will be monitoring that, folks, on Zoom. When on the phone, please use *9 to use the raise hand feature to be called on, and you can use *6 to unmute. To use the raise hand feature on Zoom video, click the controls at the bottom of your screen. If you have two computer video windows open or have a phone line active at the same time, you will create an echo effect, making hearing you impossible, so please choose one option. Regarding public comment, we'll first ask for public comment from those sitting in the chambers and then in the auxiliary seating in the building. Once those in person have provided comment, those calling into the meeting remotely will be given the opportunity to provide comment. Please clearly state your name and address, and do not be surprised if you're asked to spell your name for the record. Your speaking time will not start until after this is done. We ask the board members state their names when making a motion and a second. Lastly, please silence your cell phones so they do not disturb the meeting if you have not already done so. Shelley, could we please have the roll call?
Mr. Hawley?
Here.
Mr. Moffett?
Here.
Mr. Ritzma?
Here.
Mr. Schaefer?
Here.
Mr. Tavernier?
Here.
Mr. Vellman? We have 5 present.
All right.
5 present.
This is a 7-member board. We have 5 members present. If you feel your petition needs to be heard by the full board, please let us know as soon as possible. The opportunity to table is available to you after the petition is read, but before any report is given by staff. So if you wish to table, please let us know as soon as your petition is read. So, with that, I think
Yep.
we're ready to kick off.
I think everybody understood that. There's only 5 of us here, and we don't all vote the same most of the time. So we got the roll call done, we got that done. Can we have our first petition read, please?
Location 60205 Main Street. Owner Dominic Archuleta. Requested action, variances, 1 from section 154 .070 sub C 1D to allow a solid fence 8 foot in height in the minimum front yard where 3 feet in height above grade is permitted. And 2, from section 154.070 sub C 1D to allow a solid 8 foot in height where 8 foot in height above grade is permitted. Zoning, R Single Family District, County.
Can I interrupt something? I think she just said, under a solid fence, 8 foot in height, where 8 foot in height above grade is permitted. Shouldn't that be 6 foot? That's what I
Yes.
got here.
Yes.
Yeah,
I
that's
think
correct.
I think you said 8 foot.
Sorry,
That's
should
okay.
be 6 foot in height.
Okay,
you.
thanks,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
All right, Shelley, could you click onto the screen so I can use the, there you go, thank you. So as you can see, this is the PowerPoint slide, is the property that's being applied for here, 60205 Main Street. And here's a picture of the property from the street side. The issue is the fence that's in the front yard setback. But I want to, there's just a few other pictures, but I'll start with, staff is recommending denial of this variance. On July 28th, 2020, staff had emailed the property owner a list of licensed surveyors operating in the area and a list of, a link to the frequently asked questions on fence regulations. And that was per the petitioner's request, who had called in asking for what those rules were. The petitioner then hired Dan Charner and Associates to survey the property. On November 25th of 2020, Dan Charner and Associates surveyed the property and provided an enclosed copy of the property survey to the property owner. And then subsequently, the property owner stated that he hired a subcontractor through Lowe's to obtain the necessary permits and install an 8-foot-high privacy fence. The subcontractor then installed the fence. However, it was in violation of the St. Joseph County zoning ordinance for that height in those locations. On January 15th, 2021, so this year, staff received a complaint regarding the height being too high for the front yard, and we sent a violation warning via certified mail. The letter was not received. Subsequent violation warning was posted to the property, but no reply was given. The property owner asserts that they did not receive a copy of the violation letter. And then the property owner was intending to construct additional fence on the property. And before construction was started for the additional part, the property owner had their contractor notified by the building department that there was a violation due for the fence that we had on file. So that caused this application to the ABZA. This is an existing fence for an existing height. And during that investigation, I also discovered that the right-of-way for Main Street, where this is located, is 99 feet wide in this area, with a right-of-way width of 49.5 from the center line. At approximately 30 feet from the center line is where the fence is located, so that's well inside the public right-of-way. If this ABZA variance application is decided to be approved for any reason, the variance would only grant permission to allow an increase of the fence height on the private property. It would not adjust the fact that it is on the public right-of-way. That's a separate issue for the county's county engineering. So in this case, the property owners have been advised of that fact. We've reviewed all the information, and again, I'll highlight that in these slides. This is taken from the south looking north. The kind of in the center is a kind of a red-looking fence, is a newer fence. If you can click back on the screen for me. There we go. There's a little bit closer, but from this earlier slide, I wanted to show the fence that's on the camera's left side there is kind of in line with where the right-of-way line would be. So if you kind of imagine that going straight along that, on that angle right there from that perspective. And then here's another angle from that same south looking north. And then this is from the north looking to the south, and you see that fence right up to the edge of where that power line pole is. So this is what was submitted to us as part of the application. I sent an email to ask for clarification. The drawing shows that the green line is where the proposed fence is to be. But as described, where it is at right now is within the right-of-way, so it would be off the yellow and onto the white. That's on the right side where the Main Street right-of-way is located. And this is not shown as being drawn on the right-of-way line, on the property line. This is shown being several feet into the property line, and I'd emailed asking for clarification. I didn't receive a clarification before the meeting, and the petitioner will be able to speak to that. But I will go over to the development of standards variance criteria. This is from Indiana Code. There's 3 criteria. The approval will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, general welfare of the community. And in staff's opinion, this would be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community, as the fence drastically alters the character of the neighborhood. The fence is more characteristic of an industrial area, not a residential neighborhood. And criteria number 2, the use and value of the area adjacent to the property included in the variance will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner. And in this criteria, staff finds that the area adjacent would be affected in a substantially adverse manner, as again, the fence does drastically alter the character of a residential neighborhood. The fence is more characteristic of an industrial area rather than a residential one. And then on to criteria 3, the strict application of the terms of the chapter would result in a practical difficulty in the use of the property. And in this one, staff finds that the petitioner has not adequately demonstrated a practical difficulty. In the variance application, the petitioner notes the need of increased fence height to keep dogs and a child safe. A 6-foot privacy fence could be constructed behind the front line of the home. And so there's not a reason to have it beyond that front line of the home. And again, this is for 2 different variances. One is for an 8-foot fence that's solid in the front yard setback. And then a second issue is for the remainder of the yard beyond that first 35 feet, the maximum height allowed is 6 feet, where the fence exists is 8 feet high now. So there's 2 separate questions being asked there, and staff recommends against for both of them. And I'd be happy to answer any questions, and the petitioner's representation is here to present on their case.
You guys got any questions?
I did also want to add one more footnote. As I indicated in the report, the property owner did mention that they did go through Lowe's through a subcontractor. After this report came out, there was an email where they did give us a copy of the contract that they used. I did share that with our legal team here, with Randy, and she did indicate that, you know, this does not separate the property owner from their responsibility. Ultimately, our zoning ordinance does say that the property owner is responsible for their property, and if they have let or cause a contractor to put a fence up in the wrong location or the wrong height, it's still up to the property owner to work out those details and have that responsibility. So I'd be happy to answer any more questions, and we can go from there.
So they did go down to the building department, get a permit?
They did not. That's a very good question. In the county, we actually do not require a permit for fences. So if the contractor were to have gone and asked for a permit, the building department would have said, you know, here's what the rules are. but there's not actually a permit that we charge for, but they would have definitely reviewed any questions that anyone would have had with them, so.
On the slide that you showed that was taken facing north, there was another fence here to the left. That is close to the right-of-way line, and do you know the height of that fence?
I do not know the height of that fence, but it is definitely greater than 3 feet, and it is considered in violation. And that was a separate issue for another day,
All right,
but that is a very good observation, that you're absolutely correct.
thanks.
And I did check to see if there was a variance obtained, and I did not find one on file for that property in particular. But excellent question.
Okay.
Your comments stated that we sent a certified mail notifying of this complaint, and they claim they didn't get it, so.
Well, for the certified mail, we have a USPS mail tracker, so it does let us know if the person had signed for it and they received it. And in the certified mail version, it was not received, so we are confirmed that it did not get received. So we followed up with posting a notice to the property, and the property owner said that they did not get a copy of that, the one that we posted to the property. Sean was the one that posted it to the property, and he'd be able to testify about that.
So their statement that they didn't receive that letter is correct because we didn't get any certification back that
Correct.
they received it. Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Okay, I guess we're ready for the petitioner to, should we say,
Present.
present their case.
Name, address, don't forget.
Yeah. You present your name and address.
My name's Pete Yarbrough. I'm an attorney with Haynes Law Firm in South Bend at 125 North St. Peter Street. I'm representing Mr. Archuleta here today. I have several packets of mostly photos and things that I can distribute to you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There's a few things I'd like to emphasize this morning. I guess it's afternoon already, isn't it? The objection from the staff seems to be primarily based on a couple of things. That it says that the fence would dramatically alter the character of the neighborhood and is more characteristic of an industrial area, not a residential neighborhood. I think as was just pointed out, there's a fence next door that's more than 3 feet high in the front yard. And we'll go through the photos to talk about the neighborhood in a minute. And that a privacy space could be constructed behind the home outside the front yard setback to create a safe outdoor space. If you take a look at, I marked these as plaintiff's exhibits, though I guess we're not the plaintiff today. Exhibit A is an overhead view of the property. I think it shows that, you know, we're talking about a highly wooded area where the houses are fairly far apart. Right across the street, at the bottom of the house, or bottom of the picture, is a couple of commercial businesses. So it's not a tight residential neighborhood here. Exhibit B and C are Mr. Archuleta's contracts with Lowe's. As you can see, he's invested a substantial amount of money in building this fence. The first section cost him $22,823, and the second section is $5,000. So he's into this nearly for 23 and 5 would be $28,000 that he'll be out if he has to tear down this fence and start over. I think he probably didn't realize that he shouldn't have relied on Lowe's to let him know that there was an issue with this fence when it first started. I think he probably justifiably relied on them to have piped up and said, hey, this fence is too high for this neighborhood. You need to get a variance before we build it. So I think that's the reason he didn't pursue that. If you look at Exhibit D, this is pictures of the fence from the outside, as I think the staff exhibits show that this is not an industrial fence. This is a residential privacy fence. It's a good-looking fence. It's professionally built, and it is, I think it looks better than the other fence that was in the picture from showing the neighbor's fence. So we're not talking about something that is more characteristic of an industrial area. We're talking about something that's a residential, professionally built fence. Exhibit E is pictures of where the rest of the fence would go if it's approved. As you can see there, yeah. As you can see that we're talking about a wooded area, not right next to neighbors. We're not building a fence right between two houses. There's plenty of room there for this fence. Exhibit F is pictures of Mr. Archuletta's dogs. He has several Akita dogs. They're large dogs. They're aggressive towards strangers, but not towards him. So the main reason he needs this fence is to keep these dogs inside. I think that if he had a 6-foot fence, Mr. Archuleta will say they'd be able to jump over that, climb over it, get out. He had an incident a couple of years ago where a couple of the dogs got loose and was instructed by the Department of the County Humane Society that he needed to build a fence like this to keep the dogs in. So not only would approval of the fence not be injurious to public health and safety, I think it would promote public health and safety, and it would, not allowing it would definitely give him practical difficulties in keeping his dogs. It's illegal to keep dogs chained up all day. You have to let them run out, and so I think the fence is extremely important for taking care of these big but cute dogs. Exhibit G is pictures of the inside of the yard, showing where, that this is a professional, good-looking, well-built residential fence. You can also see in some of these a chicken coop that Mr. Archuleta has, as well as some fruit trees he's growing. Exhibit H is a example of a fence that is more characteristic of an industrial area, not a residential neighborhood. This is property down the street at the corner of Main and Dice, which is about a third of a mile away, as shown on the second page, where we have a chain link fence that is not a residential, professional, good-looking fence. Not that far from here. Exhibit I is the fence at Menards, which is not too far away. This is what an industrial fence looks like. The yard at Menards looks like a fortress. Mr. Archuleta is asking for a privacy fence to be maintained there. So in summary, we're not talking about an industrial area. We're talking about a residential, professionally done, good-looking, necessary privacy fence. There's the issue with the setback, and unfortunately, Mr. Archuleta discovered that after part of the fence was built. And yes, that's not necessarily an issue today. That is, if the height of the fence is approved, he'll have to go and ask for a modification on the setback. If that's approved, wonderful. If not, yeah, he's probably going to have to move part of that fence and install the new fence in the correct section. But the setback issue really has nothing to do with what we're talking about today. And I think that, like I said, the fence itself will promote public health safety by keeping these dogs in his backyard. If anybody has any questions for me or Mr. Archuleta, I'd be happy to answer them.
How long has the complaint or the individual lived there? How long has your family lived there?
I've been there since 2018. I just purchased the house November 2018.
2018?
Correct.
How old are the dogs?
The dogs ranges in years. So my two oldest one, Nala and Duke, I think they're pictured on the first page. They are 3 and 4 years old. My other four are going to be 1, 2, and 3.
So how many dogs do you have?
So I have a total of 6 dogs.
You
I
have
have, yeah, a total of 6 American Akitas that actually weigh in between 95 and 150 pounds.
What do you do about the dogs now? Do you have some?
I'm at home working, and I stay out there with them. I walk them on a leash because I don't have the full enclosure of the fence yet, so I can't let them loose. So I want to make sure that they're safe, but also other people that are safe too. Because again, my attorney had mentioned they are aggressive towards strangers. If they don't know you, they will stay away from you. But if you walk up to them, if you go next to them, they will either attack you or run away. I don't want to take that responsibility of my dogs being hurt or killed, or having somebody else being hurt or killed.
Sure. You've lived there since 2018?
Correct.
Have you always had dogs there then?
I've always had dogs, yes.
And right now, you have to either walk the dogs or you...
On a leash, yes.
Or if you let them out, you have to be...
Well, I don't let them roam around
You
without
can't.
being on a leash. I cannot,
Yeah.
because they will either walk off or run away.
Run away.
Either go run and get a squirrel or a bird or whatnot. So
Thank you.
In these pictures, these dogs are loose, are you just under vocal command?
I'm sorry.
Are these dogs inside your yard off leash? Are they under vocal command?
They yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Do you raise these dogs for breeding purposes?
Yes and no. I breed sometimes. Sometimes I don't. I also show the dogs, and they also compete. But I also train dogs.
When you're breeding dogs, do you do that for compensation?
I do not. I breed to honor the breed. They are Akitas are working class dogs.
Any more questions?
When you say working-class dogs, can you explain to you what you mean by that?
Yes, so you have different breeds. You have family dogs, you have pet, you have companionships, and then you also have working class breeds. Akitas, English Labradors, Siberian Huskies. If you see on movies or the television or pictures, Siberian Huskies pull sleighs, or they're working class dogs.
Well, herding dogs, I'm
Herding,
familiar
yes,
with, yeah.
Yes. So Akitas are bred to working class dogs, but they're also bred as hunting dogs. So if someone wants to go hunting and they want to have big game like brown bears, black bears, or birds or what have you, they're working class dogs.
Oh, okay, thanks.
That's what the AKC is stating the breed is. It's a working class dog.
And you feel that if that fence was 6 foot high, you're sure that they could get out and get over it?
Oh, definitely, yes. They've already done that. So each fence that I've tried, 4 feet, 5 feet, 6 foot, 7 foot, very easy for them to either jump over or climb. When I tried the 8 foot, 9 foot, 10 foot, it was very, very difficult for them to climb, let alone jump over the fence. But I also have flocks of birds in my yard also. As my attorney had stated, I have a coop, a bird coop. So birds can jump over 6 feet high. They can fly, right? I have turkeys and ducks and chickens. But the dogs itself, they can actually climb up to about 6 feet to 7 feet high. But they also can jump too.
Yeah, I've seen pictures of dogs, and I know they can climb up things like almost a tree, right up,
Definitely.
straight up. I just wonder if 8 foot, if that's going to be safe or not.
It is. On the back side of my fence, on the inside of my property, I'm actually going to put more pickets on the back side of the fence. So it's going to be very difficult for them to even climb up the 2x4s. So they won't be able to climb and adjust their footing or whatnot. So once I have the other pickets behind the fence, they wouldn't be able to climb whatsoever.
What's your thought about an invisible fence, where they...
I tried that. Did not work at all.
They went right through it?
Yes. And I don't condone shock collars. That's inhumane to animals. I don't ever suggest any shock collars. Even the invisible shocking fence does not work whatsoever.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, couple questions. Or go ahead, Abby. you
No,
have
I
something.
was going to ask if I could, gentlemen, if I could ask a couple questions, but after you, I think.
Okay.
I'll save mine.
Couple questions. Farm Credit Mid-America and Community Company. It's not zoned residential, correct? But his house is, correct?
His house
Okay.
is zoned residential.
So what's across the street has zero bearing, right? Secondly, I don't fault you for, you got a licensed contractor, or you thought you were getting a licensed
Yeah,
contractor, right?
I went to Lowe's and they said they can do the fence. I didn't know they were gonna hire a third party. I thought they were going to do the fence. Then after I found out, that's when they got the contractors over to my home. I walked them over to their whole, the whole line and everything. They told me what they were gonna do. And they were employed by Lowe's, not by me. I didn't seek a third party contractor out. I went to Lowe's and they hired the contractor.
So in your contract, says right here, the contract in the scope, the contract is between you and Lowe's for the purchase of goods and installation of services. Lowe's does not perform installation services, right? So with that being said, they obviously don't install it themselves, so they gotta have somebody that does do it, right? Again, I'm not faulting, you thought you were getting a licensed contractor. I've been a huge advocate for building permits for fences. I don't know why we don't have one. We have a permit for everything else.
And
I don't know why
honestly, I
fences
thought they
isn't it.
pulled the contractors because the contractors told me they went to the city and pulled the contract, the permits. And that was said and done. So I believe what the contractor told me that they did.
Okay. Secondly, you just said it. Your dog, 8 foot, you're gonna put pickets on the inside of the fence, right? So can your dog jump from flat-footed, that 6 foot high, if he doesn't have pickets on the, or if he had pickets on the inside?
Either pickets or non-pickets. Yes, they can jump over 5 feet, 6 foot high, almost 7 foot high. Now climbing is a whole different story. So climbing is less difficult than just jumping from flat foot, right? So having the dogs climb, it's very easy for them. So I tried the 7 foot, 8 foot, 9 foot, and 10 foot for them to climb and try to climb. They had very, very much difficulties to climb in between a 7 and 8 foot and 9 foot fence.
And you didn't have a survey until you contacted this company, right? So you didn't have a plot plan, a drawn plot plan, you didn't have anything for your house when you bought it, or you didn't know where any of your property lines were, or any of
No,
your setbacks?
I relied on the realtor, had given me all the plans and everything. So the whole survey thing that came in place was because of a neighbor south of me. She doesn't live there, it's her brother's house. She complained that I was mowing her lawn, she was gonna call the police on me, sheriff's department for mowing the lawn. I'm like, you know what, it was the second argument that just set it off. I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna get a surveyor done and get the lines plotted. So I got the survey and everything, and I found out that, well, guess what? Her property is actually my property. Well, her brother's property is my property now because of the whole survey issue. So after I got the survey, that's when I went to Lowe's to get the fence installed.
Okay, so can you go back a couple slides? Okay, so either one, this one or the next one. So, or actually one or two more back, Ryan.
Sorry.
No, you're good, or Abby, sorry. All right, so this telephone pole closest to us right now is on the setback, right?
It's on the right of way.
Okay, so do you know how difficult it is for your neighbor to pull out of their driveway and be able to see?
It's actually not difficult whatsoever because I watch the traffic go back and forth, and having that driveway, they have a lot of eye space to see oncoming traffic back and forth, south and north. So there was no complaints about that whatsoever. To me, that is. So if you were to drive down that road and past my home, you'll see how much visible room that they can see before they pull out of the driveway. So once they get before the mailbox, once they drive out of their driveway east, they can see oncoming traffic both north and south without any difficulties. Same with my driveway. So if you go into my driveway and you're pulling out or pulling in, you can see oncoming traffic without any difficulties.
Okay, I did drive by,
Okay.
just so you know. But I guess I got nothing else. Go ahead.
Gentlemen, mind if I ask a question? Sir, could you provide a little more clarity as to why you chose to fence in the front yard in addition to the rear yard?
I wanted the whole perimeter from my side yard, backyard, and north and south side yard, and the front yard also, part of the front yard. So having the enclosed fence because of my dogs, because of my birds, because of my trees, because of my 11-year-old daughter. I don't want people coming onto my property, either injuring themselves or injuring my animals or taking fruit from my trees or kidnapping my daughter or doing any of that stuff. As I just found out, there's a pedophile down the street from me. I don't know how you guys feel about that, but again, I want to keep my child safe, but also I want to make sure that my dogs are safe, and I also want to make sure the public is safe also, and my neighbors.
Abby, was that your only question there?
Uh,
I have another question.
Sure. Eventually, once you're done, we'll have to open the public hearing, and then if anyone, go through the process.
Do these dogs dig? Do they have a tendency to dig?
No,
They wouldn't dig under the fence? You're sure?
I'm positive.
Because I've seen the case where the neighbor, they had dogs on both sides, dug under the fence, then he had to buy something to bury in the ground so they wouldn't dig under the fence.
No, as I mentioned, sir, I do train my dogs. I train them from puppies to adulthood, and I make sure that they don't dig. They're very gentle with my child. They're very gentle with me, so they don't dig whatsoever.
But you mentioned that you get these dogs when they're pups?
When they're puppies, yes.
Oh, okay, thanks.
Okay, any more questions? Think we got that part covered. All right, you guys can sit down and we'll ask if there's anybody that would like to speak out for the petitioner.
In favor?
In favor? I don't see anybody. Anybody online?
No.
All right. Was there anybody that'd like to speak out against the petitioner? All right. Nobody online?
No.
Okay. So I guess we'll close the public session. We've had our discussion beforehand, pretty much. We have a motion.
I would just reiterate from staff's perspective, I believe that the petitioner provided some strong justification for an increased height based on his specific situation. However, the height limits exist in the front yard, not just when we're saying in the staff report that the fence is more characteristic of an industrial area. It's not just the fence itself, it's really the height being in the front yard setback along a relatively busy street. And an area could have been fenced off at the rear from the house back without having to put an 8-foot privacy fence in the front yard.
Yeah. I can see that, and I can also see, like we discussed earlier, that if you push it back like the neighboring one is, if you go back a couple frames, nobody seemed to have a problem with it all these years, how many years it's been there. And I'm assuming that's front yard also, the way it looked to me.
It is in the front yard.
It is in the front yard.
Yeah, just reiterating that these are two separate questions. One is, can the fence be this high in the front yard setback, the first 35 feet? And then a second question is for the rest of the yard. and you could rule differently on those two cases.
Yeah. We can split this up if we want.
Well, but it sounds like it's essentially all or nothing. If it can't be 8 foot, then there's no solution to the problem.
Right.
It could be 8 foot in the back, but not be allowed in the front as one possibility.
You'd have to butt up to the house or something to get your,
Right, but if they're flat-footed and he puts slats on the inside and they can,
yeah,
6 foot, it's
doesn't
all or
solve,
nothing.
doesn't solve their hardship, correct. Anybody? There's 5 of us, or 4 of us actually, that make. You have a thought, Bob?
I'd make a recommendation to allow the 8 foot, but as long as it's not within the front and it's up to the appropriate location to the side of the house.
Donnie, can I clarify that you mean, when you say the front yard setback?
Yes. So where it, go ahead, Abby, clarify again.
If I may, I believe you're trying to say you would move to approve variance number 2 and deny variance number 1?
Yes.
That sounds right, yeah. That would be the,
Just to reiterate, so that'd be denial of number 1, which would be to allow a solid fence 8 feet in height in the minimum front yard where 3 feet in height above grade is permitted, so that'd be deny that. And then to approve variance 2, to allow a solid fence 8 feet in height where a 6 foot in height above grade is permitted.
Correct.
Abby, you said something about, it's, on the front, it would be where the setback is?
I apologize. Yeah, so, looking for the exact citation. So Ryan or Sean, if you get to it before I do.
It's just section numbers are right here.
See here?
The front yard setback in the residential district is,
35 feet
From the property line or?
from the property line.
From the front of the property line on the street, so to speak.
with
It's
a,
35 feet back.
correct, from the right-of-way line back 35 feet.
And the house is still setting back from that, right?
The house is roughly in line with the front right-of-way line. It's on an angle, so it's not perfectly so for the entire house. And you can't just draw a straight line north and south because of the angle that the street's on. But the house is on a kind of a straight north-south, but the road is not, so it's on a wedge, if that makes sense.
Base,
Yeah, I don't feel, I'm sorry, I don't feel comfortable with the fence in front of the house. I want it connected to the house. That's where I want it.
Right.
Here's the house, I want the fence connected, this is the front.
That's what, yeah, I was-
What he said.
well, Donnie said behind, it can't exceed the 8 feet height within the front yard setback.
Yeah,
And that's 35 feet. You can see at the top,
That would be.
it's at 42.63. The house is set back from the right-of-way line. Per
Right.
the survey.
If you approve the second variance, though, it's from where 6 foot is permitted to 8. 6 foot is not permitted in front of the building line of the house. So that would be essentially what you want. The house would be here, and then the fence would have to be in line with it or behind it. So,
so do I need to?
correct.
Stand down or like excuse my emotion?
I think what Sean just clarified for us is that your motion, as he made it, reflects what Bob is wanting to see. That
Yeah.
the,
It would end up with, if it were 35 setback from here, and if it's in line with heading towards this direction, you could conceivably have the fence on the north edge be allowed to be built in front of the house, but by the time it got down to here, it would still be a little bit in front of the house would be allowed, but by the time you get down to here, it would be from an angle heading down, so that it would be 35 feet. It's a band that goes along the edge of the road. Does that make sense?
Okay. So what I would recommend is that you motion to, if you're wanting to allow the 8-foot, but behind the house, motion as you did previously, Donnie, with the condition that the fence cannot go further than the front line of the house.
Not exceed the front of the house.
Okay. So,
Brandy, does that,
I would say can't go closer to the road than the front of the house,
can't go closer than the front of the house,
to the road.
to the road.
Yeah, that means that it's got to be connected there to the house. Well, it don't need to be connected, but it's got to be at a point where the dogs couldn't get through it, and here's the house here.
Bob, could you clarify, is it the front building line or the rear that you're wanting to
The
see?
Well, I'm not talking about a building line, I'm just saying that wherever it measures up to the side of the building, that's where
So
I'm
essentially
comfortable.
can't exceed the front of the house.
That's right, yeah,
Right.
yeah, there you go.
So it would be a motion to deny variance 1 and approve variance 2 on the condition that the 8-foot fence does not go closer to the road than the front of the house.
Correct.
You
Perfect.
Very well said.
You did
But
great,
it's still-
Brandy.
So do I need to reiterate that again?
I think you can just say, yes, that's my motion.
Yes, that's my motion.
That's his motion. Do we have a second?
I would second that then.
Bob seconds it. Okay, can we call for a vote then, I guess?
How's your cough?
Excuse me.
Hold on a second here. So in the front of the house, because I got to clarify, because I got to figure out how I'm going to vote here. The front of the house, he can still only, if we,
Have a 3-foot.
right, it's still only 3 foot, right? In the front of the house.
No,
The first 35 feet from the property right-of-way line, it could only be 3 feet high. That first
So he'll be able to
35
pull
feet.
8 feet all the way from the front of the house to the back of the property.
That's what this would
If the
allow, yes.
variance-
That's
is-
what this is
yes.
going to allow.
Well, I want to clarify
Well, no, Brian, I want to, I'm in favor of the 8-foot, so,
I'm saying the front line of the house may continue straight on an angle. And when it gets down to this point, it's not going to be 35 feet away. So
Sean, could you please
35 feet would be
clarify?
At an angle heading to the corner of the house over here. Does that make sense?
Well, the way that Donnie worded his motion after I restated it would say that variance 1 is just denied. So if it goes in, in order to keep it at the 8 feet, they would have to stay out of the area where it would be required to be 3 feet.
Exactly.
Yeah, so he's got to stay behind that front right away.
Anywhere
I'm
in the
trying
front
to-
yard where it would be required.
Correct.
what
It
I
would,
was
it would
trying
need to
to
be
figure out.
behind the house and also
Right,
35
It
feet.
cannot impede into the front right away.
Correct.
All right, now I got it. It's not how I heard it, so.
Even though it won't be 35 feet off the property line.
It will be, he can't put an 8-foot fence anywhere within that front right of way. So if it goes at an angle down here, like Ryan was just showing, it goes at an angle down here, all right? So right here, you're 35 feet or somewhere in here, but if you come down here, it's 22 feet, you can't do it. He's got to stay within that right of way of the front. So it can't go at an angle, it's gonna go at an angle to the
Right.
back of the property, not towards the front of the property.
Yes, that would be how, he's saying that because the way that the house is situated, if you went a straight line along, just saying, I'm going along the straight line parallel with the rest of the house, that it could impede into that 3-foot area. The way you worded your motion, it would not allow it to do that. They would have to angle the fence along the end of that the area that it switches from the allowed height from 3 feet to 6 feet. It would have to stay in that 6 feet.
So
No, it
we're
couldn't
going
go
off
any
the property
closer to
line,
the
not
road.
house. Or we're going off the house, not the property line.
No, No and no.
We gotta go off something.
No. It's not to exceed the front of the house, but with the
So you're
first
you're going off
variance
the
being
house.
denied, no. With the first variance being denied, it does not allow them to impede in the front right-of-way, which is where 3 feet would be. So if you're drawing a line, your house is set at a little bit of an angle, right?
The road's at an angle, the house is
Or
straight.
road's at an angle, house, whatever. It's at an angle, no matter how you look at it,
Right.
okay? If you draw a straight line, okay, the
Goes
very
south.
end of that fence is going to impede that right-of-way. If it's 5 feet, that 5 feet is only allowed to be 3 feet tall. So he's gonna have to drop the fence back at the very end of the property. We go back to.
Okay.
That won't solve it.
Don't read that, don't read that, that's gonna hurt him. Right here, so, this property, this right of way, the house is coming at an angle, all right? So if this fence has gotta come back to here to be in line with the front of the house, but it's 5 feet into the right of way, can't put it 5 feet
Into the front
the
setback.
line of the house because he's in the front setback. So he's gonna have to bring it to the edge of the setback, and he can't take it straight in line with the house. Hopefully, they're going to explain it to him. Let's just.
I understand what you're
Okay,
saying.
then I got it, so let's.
No, I was just understanding what you were
Let's do it.
saying. I didn't know which one you wanted, though.
Donnie, I'm
You're
back
following the
Donnie
prop-
100%.
You're following the property line.
I got you, yep.
Would it
Okay.
confuse you if I read a section of the ordinance that perhaps provides
I got
a little
this.
more
I'm-
clarity? Okay, no? Okay. I just will say fences in residential districts fences located in a minimum front yard or in the buildable area of a lot between the front lot line of the primary building and the minimum front yard. So that's covering the minimum front yard and between the front lot line of the primary building and the property line. So within that area cannot exceed what's allowed in the zoning ordinance. Yes,
I'll follow you.
okay.
You got it?
I got it.
Let's do this.
All right.
So we have Mr. Ritzma as first motion and Mr. Hawley as second motion.
Yep.
Okay. Mr. Moffett,
Yes.
Mr. Tavernier,
Yes.
Mr. Hawley,
Yes.
Mr. Ritzma,
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer.
Yes. Based on the testimony presented today to the Area Board of Zoning Appeals, with careful consideration, find this partially, or what, part two?
Variance 1 is denied and variance 2 is granted, subject to the condition that the 8-foot fence can't go farther, closer to the road than the front of the house.
Correct. Will be, okay, will be granted and will be issued in writing, finding the facts to you. Okay, can we have our second petition read?
Location, 101 North Jefferson Road. Owner, Elizabeth Jorgensen. Requested action, variance 1 from section 5.01 sub E 3A to allow a fence 4 foot in height above grade, which is less than 50% open between the front lot line and the front building line. Zoning R1, Single Family District, North Liberty.
Yes, good afternoon. This is Sean Klein, Area Plan Commission staff. So here's the fence in question. It's a 4-foot fence. It is kind of approaching the openness of 50%, but because of the cross pieces there, it's not quite there. Where it's currently placed here is in conformance with the zoning ordinance, but the petitioner would like to move it in front of the house and the garage such that it's 10 feet in front of the house. And therefore, since it's not 50% or greater open space, it would require this variance in order to do so. Staff recommends approval of this variance. because this is a corner lot, so with two fronts, there is some practical difficulty with that. Also, the house is set back an additional 10 feet from the southern property line than what would be required. So those two factors taken together kind of severely limit the area that could be fenced off in the backyard with virtually all fences, but a very limited class, that being 4 feet and greater than 50% open space. So when we turn to, here's the site plan here. So as you can see, it's proposed that that fence be moved up so it's 10 feet in front of the house, 8 feet in front of the garage. When we turn to the state law criteria, staff finds that the approval will not really have any impact on public health, safety, or public health morals and general welfare. We also find that it will not be injurious to public safety, because at that proposed location, it's still well outside the clear sight area of the driveway and then the street, so it's not a risk to public safety there. We find that the use and value of the area adjacent to the property included in the variance will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner, because the visual impact of this fence, we find, doesn't really differ substantially from a fence that would have slightly more open space and therefore be permitted. Furthermore, it's just placed between the garage and the house, so those facades are still visible from the street, from the public right-of-way, so it really doesn't have that much negative impact on neighborhood character, if at all. And then we find that strict application of the terms of this chapter would result in practical difficulties, because as I said, this is a corner lot. The house is set back further than it needs to be, which in turn would require the fence to be set back further from there. And it creates a very limited space that can be fenced off. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
No questions?
Is this fence up now?
It is up now at that location where it is permitted, but they want to move it forward, and that's what would require a variance.
Thank you.
So that's it, okay. We got the petitioner here? You want to?
Hi,
State your name and address, please.
Elizabeth Jorgensen, 101 North Jefferson, North Liberty, Indiana.
Okay.
I think about it, I just moved there a month ago, so old address is still stuck in my head.
Okay, tell us,
Well,
trying to get accomplished?
the whole purpose of my fence is for my dogs, so that I can let them out the door without having to go out and walk them. With it as it is, I still have to put them on a leash and walk them to the gate, and then let them out. Totally defeats the purpose of a fence. Also, little dog, this wasn't, I didn't ask for this variance as well, I probably should have. I can pay the extra 50 if I'm granted this variance as well, if that is need be, but where they said that, like, the wood is this wide, the gap has to be this wide between wood. Little dog can go through it. And my big dog, I got a video I could show you where she can get her whole head. She's a 95-pound lab, and she can get her head in there and part of her shoulder. So I'm afraid, to lead her out there. Even when she's in there, I sit out there with her because I'm afraid, the dollar store is right across the street. People are, all the traffic, she's wanting to, bark and get to them. Chances are she won't get through that fence, but what if she did, if she can push that far into it? So I was really hoping that instead of that wide gap, that we can have just like a few inches of a gap between. Honestly, at first I wanted a privacy fence in the front and the back, but they said I couldn't have a privacy fence. Well, I could where it is, but where I want it, I can't. So I said, okay, well, we'll do the picket fence, but, which honestly, I don't really, it doesn't matter to me at this point, but I just wanted to be where it's not as wide if I could as well. And if I could have the fence where I wanted, it would be on, you can see the little brick sidewalk there closer to the porch. I'd like it on this side of the brick sidewalk to the garage, and then we have a gate there, and then a gate in the front of the porch here going up to the house, so that I could just let the door, open the door and let them out. I've also got grandkids, small grandkids that I worry about with that being that wide too, with them getting stuck in there some way or, their head, or, I don't know if they could or not, but crazier things have happened. I just want a fence, that's it. So,
Okay.
I think that's it.
All right, any questions?
Correct me, sorry, you want to go first?
Go ahead.
Okay. Correct me if I'm wrong, Brandy, but since we advertised it as less than 50% open space, the board could decide to allow more of that gap to be filled in, correct? As long as it,
Well, that's essentially what this would do. If they approve the variance, then it wouldn't, she could enclose it totally.
right, okay.
Oh, okay, I could have
That's
it
what I'm
complete
getting
privacy
right
if I
We were
wanted.
we were all on the same page
Yeah.
there.
So, but just a little education, the reasoning behind there being a gap is so that kids or animals can't get their heads stuck. And that's the reasoning behind not being able to have a wider gap. So
Right,
I know
well, I don't
you
want
wanna
it
go
wider, I
smaller.
want it
I know you
smaller,
wanna go
right.
smaller, but I'm just telling you, that's the reasoning
Okay, yeah,
behind having that center gap in there so that kids or
Right.
dogs can't get their heads stuck in there.
right. She's a country girl stuck, thrown in public. She's my dog. She's not used to all this. Every little noise, she's like, wanting to get at everybody.
You're the carpenter. Isn't it 4 inches, a 4-inch ball on a stairwell? Or, no, or a framing square. Yeah, because the kids can't get their heads caught in it for safety reasons. Yeah. That's why when they say 50% open, if you use the right planks, you wouldn't be legal as far as that type of situation.
Everybody takes a 2x4 and sticks it between them, and that's what they.
Yeah, 3.5 inches, yeah. So a 4-inch ball can't go through them. Yeah.
Does it have to be 4 foot if it's moved up? Because I originally wanted the 6 foot like I got in the back. I think it's 6 foot, right? And the one in the back, 6 foot privacy in the back. And they said that if it, in the front, where I want it to be, that they couldn't be 6 foot, that it had to be 4 foot picket.
If you wanted that, you would have to apply for a different variance than the one
That's-
you've
that's
applied
okay.
for.
I'll deal with it. I don't want to wait. I need it now.
Right, you have to start over.
Right.
Okay, all right, so I guess thank you.
All right, thank you.
We'll open it up for our public session, and we'll have anybody here to speak out against this petition? Okay, nobody apparently. Anybody here to speak out for the petitioner? Come on up, state your name and address.
Jerry Connell, 103 North Jefferson Street, North Liberty.
Okay.
And I just can't, it doesn't bother me, it's fine, makes the house look nicer to me, so, I have no issues with it, so.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? I guess public session closed then. Do I have a motion?
Make a motion to approve petition number 2.
Second.
Vote please. Roll.
Mr. Moffett?
Yes.
Mr. Ritzma?
Yes.
Mr. Hawley?
Yes.
Mr. Tavernier?
Yes.
And Mr. Schaefer?
Yes. Based on testimony presented here today at the area zoning board meeting, careful consideration, find the variance approved and will seek, and granted, and will issue in writing finding of the facts. All righty. We'll go to number 3, isn't it? Thought it was further along than
Yep,
that.
number 3. Creston.
Location, 13835 Creston Street. Owner, Renee Corey Waugh. Requested action, variances, 1, from section 154.070 sub C, A, 2, to allow a 2-foot rear setback where 8 foot is required for a storage shed. Zoning R, Single Family District, County. And the petitioner is online as well.
Okay.
All right, this is Sean Klein once again. If you wouldn't mind clicking on the presentation there for me?
I did.
Maybe? Okay, there we go. Okay, so here's the property. And there is the structure in question. This was red tagged by the building department on November 5th. Based on the property record card and historic aerials, there was a smaller storage shed in that same location, set back approximately 2.5 feet from the property line. Which you can kind of make out here up in the corner there. Evidently, this was destroyed by fire this year, and this new structure was built in the same position at that same location at that 2.5 foot setback. The 96 square foot structure was likely legal nonconforming at that setback. However, since the new structure is far larger than that one, it doesn't have that legal nonconforming status. So the structure must be removed to now meet the current development standards of 8 feet, or it needs the variance that's before you today. Staff recommends denial of the variance on the grounds that the petitioner wasn't able to adequately establish practical difficulty in meeting that 8-foot setback, and furthermore, a structure of this size built only 2.5 feet from the property line could be injurious to the use and value of adjacent properties. So when we turn to all 3 of the state law criteria more specifically, staff finds that the approval will not be injurious to public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community. However, we do find that it could be injurious to the use and value of adjacent properties, particularly because the visual impact of a 20-foot wall, which is the width of that wall that is along the neighbor's property, only 2.5 feet from a property line, could be detrimental to the neighbor's enjoyment of their property, as well as potential resale value of that property. Additionally, it might be difficult to maintain this property or this structure without having to essentially trespass into the neighbor's property. And when we turn to the strict application of the terms of this chapter, we find that meeting that 8-foot setback would not result in practical difficulty. As the petitioner pointed out, a vast amount of the property is not level. However, as you can see from this photo, there is adequate level space there that the structure could be moved or could have originally been built, meeting the 8-foot setback. So as a result, staff recommends that the variance be denied. And I'm happy to answer any questions, and I believe the petitioner is on Zoom.
Okay, any questions for the board?
Yes. Also, I wanted to reiterate that we did receive 3 letters from neighbors in support of this variance, and I believe that you each have copies of those before you.
Okay. We got our petitioner online then?
Yes.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. State your name and address, please.
Corey Waugh,
Justin Waugh.
13835 Creston Street, Mishawaka, Indiana, 46544.
Okay. Can you tell us why you have this new structure is it a portable structure?
Well, earlier this summer, my lawn tractor caught on fire and pretty much burnt everything down that was in it and then around it. So I needed to put something else right there, but have room to keep things inside that was actually on the outside.
Anything more?
The shed that was there has been there ever since we lived here, and before that, we've lived here for 3 years now. And so since everything in it and the entire building was destroyed by the fire, we wanted to rebuild something in the exact same area, so that we could keep things like, lawnmower, any weed whip, the kids' toys, anything like that inside of it. And due to the way our property is, the whole front half of the property is hills, and then the whole bottom half towards Short Street is all zoned and used for water drainage and runoff. And so then in the backyard, the reason we kept it where it was at is because anything closer to our fence there, as you can see, if you're going, I believe that'd be south, we have our well there, and then you start any further south, you start to get into where our septic system and field tiles are. And so we wanted to fit it kind of snug right where it was at within inside those trees there. And so that's why we just opted to go with the exact same spot.
I see. Okay.
Are there any other utilities like pedestals or transformers for electric or anything in that immediate area?
No.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Did you guys build this yourselves, or did you hire a licensed contractor?
We built it ourselves.
We did the work ourselves.
And is it on a concrete pad?
Yes, there was concrete there.
There was a 20 by 24 concrete pad already existing?
No, there was concrete under the old one, so we poured a new concrete pad.
You personally poured this, or you hired a contractor?
We personally did it.
And I think, Bob, you were asking if there's electrical ran out to it? There's no electrical ran to it?
There is electrical. It was existing. There was electric to the building that was there before. The only thing that we did was fix some of the electrical there that had gotten destroyed in the building by the fire. So there was an existing electric line to that building.
And the shed that was existing was less than 10 by 10, or was 10 by 10?
It was, what was it?
It was 10 by 12, 10 wide,
10 by
12
12.
deep.
So they poured 360 square foot of concrete.
Yep. Or 400, did it all new. Okay. I guess we're done with questions for them? Anything else?
Is it okay if we add something, or?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. We felt that in question to the first question on whether the approval will not be injurious to the public health and safety, morals, and general welfare of the community, we felt that no, an approval of this variance request would not be harmful to the public health, safety, and morals, because we enjoy keeping our yard nice and tidy and orderly. And so the storage shed would help us to keep our yard, and by extension, the neighborhood, looking nice and well kept. And the second point on the use and value of the area adjacent to the property, the views of our adjacent neighbors haven't been affected since there was always a structure there prior to the fire. And we have 2 of the letters that are included with our petition is from the one neighbor that is actually adjacent to that setback in question. And she stated as such that she had no issue with it. And since her house is actually set towards the very front of her property, so it's quite a ways from that property line in question there. And then the neighbor next to us on the east property line there stated in his letter that he had no problem with the building where it's at as well. And so with that in question, when checking with our neighbors and all of that, we felt that we're hoping that you would be willing to grant us that petition.
And I was just gonna add one thing. Also, all their sheds are back in that same corner, so it wouldn't be like somewhere where it'd be blocking their view. Everything's kind of all back up in the exact same corner as everybody
There's
else's.
4 properties that meet there in the corner, and all of those properties all have sheds right in that same, where those 4 corners meet.
Got it.
Is this shed up?
Yeah,
The shed's existing.
It is now.
Yeah, it is up.
and they, according to them, they built it, poured the concrete,
Build it themselves.
And did you do the electrical yourself as well?
The electrical, we were just fixing in what was pretty much melted or destroyed in the fire.
So, can I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
Why didn't you pull any permits?
Well, I didn't think I'd have to have a permit for replacing a structure that was already there, but I did not know that, so I'm sorry for not checking in with that, but I didn't think that I would need one since I already had an existing shed there. It wasn't like a blank canvas since there was nothing there existing.
How long, when was the existing shed built or put in there? What year was that?
I'm actually not sure. It's been there as long as I can remember. I actually grew up, in this neighborhood within a couple of streets. And ever since I can remember, it's always been up. So, I mean, I would say at least 30 years, 25 to 30 years probably.
Thank you.
Any more questions? Nothing, okay. All right, thank you. All right, I guess we'll open it up to the public session. Is there anybody here that'd like to speak against this variance going forward or petition going forward? I don't see anybody. You got anybody online? I don't see anybody online.
No.
Okay. Would anybody like to speak for the petitioners, other than the 3 letters we received?
No one online?
Nobody? Okay, guys. We'll close the public session. Do I have a motion?
Well, I'd like to know the staff's opinion on this because you recommended denial.
That's correct. We recommend denial. We don't see that there's any practical difficulty. We think that the structure could be built 6 feet further south and meet the setback, and we think that it would be injurious to the use and value of adjacent properties potentially.
My question is, how'd you discover it?
It was red tagged by the building department.
How'd they discover it? Somebody somewhere discovered it.
They were in the hot air balloon and saw that.
I mean, this is a photo from the right of way, so it,
So when they went around and took assessment photos, they probably discovered it.
We can't answer that.
Yeah, nobody knows, okay.
I didn't
That's
think that
fine.
was a question.
That's a good question, though. Do I have any? Motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the request for the property at 13835 Cruston Street.
Anybody?
I second.
Okay, Ms. Moffett seconds. Can we take a vote?
Mr. Ritzma?
No.
Mr. Tavernier?
No.
Mr. Hawley?
Yes?
Mr. Moffett?
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
The motion failed. There was only 3 votes.
Correct, the motion failed. But now, so we got it based on the testimony presented here today.
No, you don't go
Don't
forward
say
yet.
that.
There hasn't been a decision yet.
Yeah, you
Oh,
have
there
to,
hasn't been a decision yet,
gotta
okay.
call for another.
No, we have to have
Motion.
another motion.
Okay. Do we have another motion?
Could we ask if there was another option as far as if it's the wall to the north that's in question, if we moved just that wall south by 5 feet, if it's 8 feet, it has to be back from the property line. If we moved the wall itself north 5 feet, would that be able to pass then?
Sean, does that bring it into compliance with the zoning ordinance?
As long as the entirety of the structure is at least 8 feet from that property line, then it would be in compliance. I'm not quite sure what you're describing, but
So if the roof still had an overhang and there was still the concrete pad, and let's say it was just more of like a porch, you know what I mean? But the wall itself was back 5 feet, would that be in compliance?
1 second. I think you're right.
There's an obstruction section in the zoning ordinance. Let us pull that real quick. So, because it does speak to eaves and overhangs, DJ. But if that were the case, if she could meet if they could meet the requirements of the ordinance, the variance could be denied, and then they would have to work on a resubmittal to us and the building department that would meet the requirements of the ordinance.
Renee, are you there?
Yeah, yes.
I have another question. Is this structure, is it fastened or bolted to the concrete pad?
No, it's framed down, it's framing onto the concrete pad.
But is it bolted to it? Is it fastened, or could you actually, manpower-wise, pick it up and just move it?
No, you can't move it to the south wall because right there on that picture, excuse me, that you're looking at, that Norway maple, if you move that back 6 feet to the south, you're gonna be into that tree.
So the only wall that could be moved would be that north wall.
Because you got a tree to the west that's within about 6 inches, or actually a foot, and then the east wall is 8 feet, but this north wall is at your 2.5 feet. So we would like to know if we move that wall, the exterior wall, to the south 5.5 feet to get to your 8 foot from the property line.
No, so if they cut the back of the building off 5.5 feet, isn't building code though, they can't impede the setback more than 16 inches.
Per the zoning ordinance, yeah, 18 inches, the
18
roof can
But
go into
if-
the setback,
If
so.
they cut it off, they could still leave the concrete. You could have an 18-inch overhang with 2 posts, and yes, you would meet your setback and your requirement. Concrete's fine. It's flat work. You can put
The
it there.
concrete is fine.
So if I move that exterior wall back in 5.5 feet to give me my 8 foot my 8 foot distance from the fence,
But you gotta cut the roof off 18 inches. Your roof can only penetrate to the back, or can only overhang 18 inches. That's all that you're allowed to impede into an overhang, or into a setback.
Okay, so if we.
That's correct.
So if we requested to have the concrete stay where it's at, and we moved the wall and the roof line back, so the wall would be moved back 5.5 feet to meet that 8 foot variance, and the roof line would penetrate that no more than 18 inches overhang, that would meet the recommendations.
Then you don't even need the variance.
Correct.
Okay.
Along the roof, it's a 0 overhang, so it doesn't overhang at all right now. It's just drip edge to shingle.
So, yeah, so we didn't build it to where it would like have an eave or anything. It just meets right up to the shingles. So we would just have to basically slice that whole wall off and move it back 5.5 feet.
Correct.
Silly question
But
for
you
you.
don't have to tear the concrete out.
Is the concrete 6 inches or more?
It's 4 inches.
Oh, it's only 4?
Yeah,
Did
it's
you
just a lightweight, just
Did you use
Um,
wire and fiber in it?
wire mesh.
And then below that, we did gravel.
Why? What's that matter?
Haven't you ever moved anything on concrete? You just strap around the bottom of it and drag it?
Concrete's considered flat work, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I know it is.
Oh.
But if you just went around the whole building with a strap and just found something to pull it, you could just move the whole building.
The 24 by
But the tree's in the way. No, the tree's in the way is the problem.
Okay, so as that's a rear yard, the roof could actually go into that setback 3 feet. So the wall could not. The wall would have to be 8 feet, but the roof could overhang.
So we
such-
could leave the roof where it's at 2.5 feet, are you saying? From
You,
the-
you would, it would have to
because
be
our-
at least 5 feet.
Okay, our fence
So-
our fence back there is right on our property line. So the building is 2.5 feet back from that fence. So the concrete is fine. So where the wall would have to come back an additional 5.5 feet, correct?
Correct.
And now the roof line, would that need to come back
It would need to,
also?
it would need to come back an additional 2.5 feet.
An additional 2.5 feet.
3
Okay.
3 feet. You said 18 inches, I don't know.
No, I'm sorry. It's,
We
I did, but it's
apologize.
3 feet.
So we have obstructions in our zoning ordinance. Sorry, teaching moment. In rear yards, it is overhanging eaves and gutters projecting 3 feet or less into the yard are permitted as an obstruction. In the side yards, we have overhanging eaves and gutters projecting 8 inches or less. So rear yard, 3 feet or less, side yards, 18 inches or less.
So since it's in the rear yard, it would be, so it could technically be 3 feet over then, right? You
Yep.
said.
Folks, that's why
okay.
I pulled up your site sketch to verify where the front was.
Well, that's what I'm
Okay.
saying.
Yep.
Basically, you got a porch.
Yeah, that's almost your porch.
Because the west is your front yard, correct, where the street is?
Correct, yep.
Alright.
Construction.
All right.
Easier to just put the wall up.
So from staff's perspective, denial would of course deny the variance, but then they could work on an alternative proposal to bring the property into compliance with the zoning ordinance.
So they're just gonna make it fit work, is the way I take it.
So we got 2 options. Either we can vote again, or they can just pull the variance, right, and do that.
If they want to, they could withdraw it, or you could deny it. The only thing at this point, it sounds like it really would affect would be if they want to come back. It would affect how long they'd have to wait.
Yeah. Take them 6 months to come back for it.
We would have to wait 6 months to resubmit, or?
If you change your plan and you decide to make your adjustments so that you comply with the zoning ordinance, you wouldn't have to wait at all. You would just need to submit and pull that. It would be, if you wanted to come back for a variance on this,
Okay.
it would adjust.
So is it worthwhile then having it to be revoted on and then go from there?
Well, if we vote on it now.
That if you want to preserve your opportunity to come back for a variance sooner, it would be better for you to withdraw it.
Okay. Okay, so if we withdraw, then we would have to come up with a new site plan to submit?
Correct.
Okay,
Or you
And-
could come back with the same variance request in 3 months.
in 3 months. Okay. And that would be, so that would be,
If she
But if-
withdraws it, it's 3 months.
No,
right, and so,
Go ahead.
sorry, go ahead.
If they withdraw it and they remove the wall,
Right, no, she
5.5
asked
feet,
what her
yeah.
options were. She said if I withdraw it, I could either bring the building into compliance and get my permits and do that,
Exactly.
or come back in 3 months with the same variance request.
I didn't know.
Yes.
Exactly.
Which, if it, if nothing's changed with my variance request, then the choice of coming back in 3 months probably wouldn't make a difference then, correct?
Well, you'd have
There would
seven
be a
board members.
possibility that there might be more board members here. Right, it's a 7-member board, and right now there's 5 here.
Okay. So I'd say we'd like to go ahead and withdraw it today then, and then we'll decide which route we'd like to go.
Is that acceptable, Randy?
And that's fine with
Yep.
me. They haven't voted on it, so
Well, they
They-
did vote on it.
they haven't made a decision, so.
Okay,
think it's
well,
a-
Then we'll wait.
Now, you said that she could withdraw it. If she withdraws it, can they come back next month when there's 7 people?
They have to wait 3 months with
Okay.
the withdrawn petition. If you were to vote and to deny the petition, they would have to wait 6.
Well, now, I know that we bring this up in the beginning, where you state that we don't have a full board. If you wish to wait until there is a full board,
That
you-
would be a request to table.
to table it. Do they have
So-
the option still to table it?
They can't do it on their own, as what you're describing. You yourselves could vote to table it if you would want to do that,
That's an option.
as the board. That's an option the board has.
Yeah, thank you.
And that would be for the following month then?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
What I would recommend from staff perspective is, Sean, you prepared the staff report for this case, right?
Correct.
Corey, what I would recommend is that you get with Sean, sorry, is it Justin as well? Sorry. Corey and Justin, get with Sean, draw out an alternative proposal that meets the requirements of the zoning ordinance, and if you feel comfortable on that, with that, then there's no need for the variance to even be refiled. And we don't have to come back.
So you would recommend that they withdraw it now?
If you feel like you can develop a plan, Corey and Justin, that meets the requirements of the zoning ordinance where the variance isn't necessary, then the board action is not needed.
Rather than, and you're recommending that rather than having it tabled and wait until the next month when there might be a full board?
Well, but what do we do if, because what do we do if we don't, we
We just
come at a
table it.
standstill? Then we have to table
Yes,
it, right?
if you guys were to vote again on a motion to deny the variance, and it also would fail, the motion, this petition would automatically be tabled.
Automatically.
So,
I'd say let's table it.
Somebody needs to make a motion to that effect, if that's what you want to do.
You wanna make a motion, Bob?
Sure. I'll make a motion that we table the property request for 13835 Creston Drive. Creston Street. Whatever, yeah.
Street. Get a second?
I second.
Okay, we got a table and a second. What do we do? Take a vote, or do we just say yea or nay?
For the tabling vote, you don't have to do a roll call vote, you could just vote together.
All right.
You have to call all those who are in favor, say yes.
Yes.
All in favor? All in favor of tabling it? Oh. You guys in favor of tabling? All in favor, say yes.
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 Anybody, then you would say, are there anybody against tabling it?
Anybody against it?
I'm against tabling it. They should just work with staff and
They
not
have-
even bother with
You
it.
have 2 noes and 3 yeses, it's tabled, because that one doesn't require 4.
Really?
It's not really an official action.
Because if they table it, all this is still gonna stand, and we're just gonna keep, re-vote it on again next month. So what good is that gonna do?
Or if they come back in 3
Or they wait
months?
3 months, or then they wait 6 months. Like,
Yeah,
why not just let them work with staff and get something that's compliant?
that's what we're doing by tabling it. Let them work with staff.
It's entirely possible we'll come back to the meeting in January and they'll have withdrawn it because they'll have worked it out.
We're just
with
helping them
staff.
short the time frame up so they can move it along.
So Brandy, per our bylaws, we don't require a majority vote for tabling?
Well, it's a majority of the people here.
Oh, okay, a majority of those present.
An action on the petition to approve it or deny it would require 4. I don't see a reason why tabling would require 4.
Okay,
So it's tabled.
so it's tabled. All right, we're going to petition number 4? Or is that was 4?
Corey and Justin, staff will be in contact with you.
That was 3.
Thank you.
Okay, thank
Okay,
you very
thank you.
much.
Okay. All right, thank you. We have a petitioner here for petition number 4.
Well, we would need the reading of
Oh, we
petition
gotta
4
read-
into the
yeah, I'm
record,
sorry.
and
We
staff
gotta have
would
the
provide the
reading of
staff
it first.
report.
All right, I'm getting ahead of myself.
Location 52280 Filbert Road, Granger. Owner Eric W. Stanton. Requested action, variance 1 from section 154.070 sub C, 1A, 1 to allow 2,214 square feet in detached accessory area where a maximum of 1,404 square feet is permitted for the construction of a garage. Zoning R, Single Family District, County.
Okay.
All right, I'll just
forward.
provide a brief staff report, and then I'll let
Yeah.
Eric speak to the request. All right, so this is, this subject property consists of 2 lots. One is 32, the other is 32A. Together, they're one zoning lot, and they can be built upon as if they're single zoning lots under unified control. Improvements include the 1,400 square foot single-family home, a detached garage, which is 768 square feet, and a 96 square foot shed that the petitioner has indicated he would demolish if this request is approved today. So a proposed detached accessory structure, 1,350 square feet in area, is proposed entirely on Lot 32A. As shown on the plan, the proposed garage would be located entirely on the vacant lot, but behind the building line of the primary structure. The single-family home is approximately 14 feet in height currently, is 14 feet in height. The existing garage is 14 and a half feet, and according to the petitioner, the new garage would be approximately 15 feet, and it would be sided and have a roof that would be of similar style and characteristic to a residential home. The petitioner intends to run electrical to the structure, but no bathroom is proposed. It is for, it's more or less, my understanding, it's a toy barn. In looking at the state code criteria, the approval would not, correction to my staff report, I missed a couple critical words. The approval would not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, or general welfare. It's not out of character with structures and in the surrounding neighborhood. The use and value of the area adjacent would not be affected in a substantially adverse manner. It's going to be located behind the rear building line of the primary structure and behind the neighboring structures, the neighboring property's primary structure. In strict application to the terms of the zoning ordinance does result in a practical difficulty. The existing garage on the subject property is detached. Most of the homes in this area have attached garages. If the existing garage were attached, like many of the homes in the surrounding area, the variance wouldn't be required. So the property is unique in that respect. Staff recommends approval of the variance. Here is the primary structure, the vacant lot, and then it's proposed to be located about where that raised bed is. And the petitioner is here to answer any additional questions.
Any questions? No? Okay.
Yes, so,
Now it's your turn.
yes, thank you. My name is Eric Stanton, and I live at 52280 Filbert Road in Granger, Indiana. That's where the proposed site is.
Okay. Anything further?
Well, just says name and address, so that's my name and address. I'm going to retire soon, probably the first of the year, and the intent for the garage is to be able to use the garage that's there now. Looks like there's a white or a silver car in front of it. And that driveway right there on the left leads around the house, then back to the existing unattached garage, to be able to put both of our cars inside there during the winter, because now they're outside. There were a couple of old vintage cars in that garage, and the intent is to build the garage in that open lot to work on my old cars, and I have a couple of old motorcycles. But to have everything inside, too.
Right. Okay, any questions from the board? I guess nothing? Nobody's asking anything.
This is a subdivided lot, right?
Yeah, so it'll be a standalone building.
It would be located on a separate lot within the Renan replat subdivision. However, because they are under unified control, we treat them like one zoning lot, so it can be developed as if it were one giant lot.
When that house was built, the guy's name was Otto Ringen, and he built a number of houses in that neighborhood. And when my parents bought that house from him, the lot next door, where the proposed garage hopefully will be, was vacant, and Mr. Ringen said he was going to build a house there, but after a year or two, he didn't. And he was getting up in years, and my dad just suggested, would you like to sell that lot? And he did, so that's how we wound up with that lot, you know. So it's been vacant. There were trees, a lot of trees my dad had in the yard, but I've pulled all the trees out, or many of them. And then you could see in the one of the pictures, the elevation picture of the front of the house, kind of there, like the grass is kind of torn up. Well, that was where all the trees were. There were evergreens actually all the way across both lots at the start when my dad put those in. So, but the bad thing is the trees drop leaves and they pull all the water out of the ground, so the grass won't grow. So over last summer and then into the fall, I had the trees taken down, and then a landscaper seed the yard, you know.
You propose to build this, this coming spring?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
My question, if this was one lot, you wouldn't allow a building that big, would you? Because you'd have more outstructure buildings, totaling more square footage than the 1,400?
Yeah, that's the variance that is necessary for approval of this structure.
But that's, just because, okay, because,
It's accessory area, yep.
but it's two separate lots.
It is, but I don't know if this is what you're asking, but if this were a separate lot and not considered a zoning lot under unified control, then it would be an accessory structure without a primary structure.
Right.
Because both lots together are
Classes, gotcha.
are designated by the owner to be developed under unified control, and what is it, adjacent, abutting? Abutting, thank you, Ryan. We consider a zoning lot basically one lot that you can develop as if it were two separate lots under the definition of zoning lot can be developed as if it were one lot.
Gotcha.
She also said that if the garage was attached, we wouldn't even be doing this, right?
Right.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
If the garage was attached, we wouldn't even be doing it. Okay. All right, we heard, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, now we'll open it up to the public session. Do we have anybody gonna speak against or for? Might as well speed it up. Please come up and speak now. Anybody online?
No.
No? Nobody? I guess public session's closed. Do I have a motion?
Apparently I'm on fire today. I'll make a motion to approve petition number 4.
There you go.
Second.
Second, we got a first and a second. We got a vote now.
Mr. Moffett?
Yes.
Mr. Ritzma?
Yes.
Mr. Tavernier?
Yes.
Mr. Hawley?
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes. Now we got, based on the testimony presented here today at the Area Board of Zoning Appeals, we carefully considered finding that these variants be approved and will issue in writing finding of the facts. All right. Our next petitioner, that'd be, I think, 5.
You're good to go, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Location on the east side of Clover Road, immediately south of Indiana-Michigan border, west of Saddlebrook at Knollwood subdivision. Owner, Clover Hills LLC et al. Requested action, variances, 1, from section 154.107, sub C, 1, to allow a 20-foot front side back where 35-foot is required for 19 residential lots in recently approved subdivision. Zoning R Single Family District, County.
Mine says 25 feet for the front setback. You said 20.
Sorry, 25 feet.
Okay.
Yeah, 25 feet. So this is a petition to reduce the setback for new homes built in this subdivision. It's a 19-lot subdivision recently approved from the 35-foot setback to the 25 feet. Staff recommends approval of the variance. This setback will be consistent for all 19 lots within this subdivision, and it is also consistent with the setbacks in the neighboring subdivision of Saddlebrook at Knollwood, which this subdivision is actually going to connect into to the east there. So when we turn to the state law criteria, staff finds that the approval of this variance will have no impact on public morals or general welfare. It also will not be injurious to public safety because a 25-foot setback for a house that is adjacent to a local street is still adequate for safety reasons. Additionally, it could actually promote public health because this would allow an additional 10 feet in the backyard to use for septic purposes. We find that the use and value of the area adjacent to the property included in the variance will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner. Once again, all of the lots within this subdivision will be at this consistent 25-foot front setback. It won't really affect any properties outside of the subdivision, and many of those properties are actually set back at 25 feet themselves. And we find that strict application of the terms of this chapter would prevent a residential development pattern which is consistent with previously completed subdivisions in the area, and there would not really be any corresponding benefit to public or nearby property owners in denying this development pattern. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
This property does not connect in any way with Saddlebrook, does it?
It does connect to the east to Saddlebrook.
It does?
It does.
No, I mean, but there's no road going into it.
This is where the road will connect right here.
Oh, I see it. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I do see it, yeah.
Okay. All right, I take it this is our petitioner.
Yes, Rob Nichols with Avmarsh Consultants, 315 West Jefferson, representing the petitioners. Happy to answer any questions. It's a pretty standard setback variance.
Yeah, pretty standard stuff.
Same for the 112 lots across the street that you guys approved a few months ago, so.
Okay. Anybody got any questions for him? No, everybody's good? All right, I guess we move to the public session. Anybody here want to speak out against? Anybody want to speak out for?
No.
Nobody? I guess public session is closed. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the request for the property. Item number 5 on our agenda for today.
Yeah.
I'll second.
Clover Hills LLC.
Yep. Cool.
I'll second.
Okay, DJ seconds. Guess we want to vote?
Mr. Moffett?
Yes.
Mr. Ritzma?
Yeah.
Mr. Hawley?
Yes.
Mr. Tavernier?
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes. Based on testimony presented here today, the Area Board of Zoning Appeals carefully considered finding the variance granted and will issue in writing finding of the facts. Okay, do we, number 6.
Location 19075 Osborne Road, Robert E. and Dorothy D. Sawyer. Requested action, variance 1 from section 154.092 sub A to allow a lot area of 3.19 acres, where a minimum of 20 acres is required for a lot 1 of a proposed 2-lot subdivision. Zoning A, agricultural district, county.
This is Sean Klein again, Area Plan Commission staff. So this petition and the next petition, both on Osborne Road, these pertain to these adjacent houses along the road. They're both parties to a proposed subdivision, and what the subdivision really hopes to accomplish is to divide off these existing houses into smaller lots and then concentrate the existing agricultural land onto a 165 or 162 acre rather outlot. This won't result in the creation of the possibility for any additional residential uses in the agricultural district beyond what would be permitted by right. As you can see now, the property lines are rather unusual. This is one of the residences here. So staff recommends approval, given that it will not result in the creation of any additional residential uses in the agricultural district. And also it helps to create more just normal property lines. So when we turn to the state law criteria, we find that the approval will not be injurious to public health, safety, morals, and general welfare, because once again, it will not allow an additional buildable residential lot in the agricultural district. We find that the use and value of the area adjacent to the property will not be affected in an adverse manner, because it will not allow for an additional residential use. And we find that strict application of the terms of this chapter would prevent a subdivision, which would create more sensible property lines and allow the owner to concentrate the agricultural property onto one outlot, which will increase the likelihood that it will remain cultivated should the house and the outlot end up in separate ownership in the future. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions, guys? Nope, nope, nope. Okay. Who's our presenter for our petition?
Yes, Terry Lang from Lang, Feeney and Associates. Our address is 715 South Michigan Street in South Bend. I represent the petitioners for this one and the next one, which are the adjacent homes. As Sean had indicated, there were two oddly configured 20-acre parcels there, of which we are looking to downsize what is basically the yard area of each of the two home sites. And the balance of the property then will revert back to the agricultural use that it's currently being used for. So the petition, the variances that we're asking for will protect more of the agricultural property as the ordinance intends.
Okay. All right, I guess we're gonna, any questions? I'm guessing not. Okay, we're gonna open it up to the public for anybody that wants to speak in favor or against this proposal. Got anybody online? Nope, nobody here and nobody online. I guess we'll close the public session. We got a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve petition number 6.
Second.
Bob seconds. We have a vote.
Was it Bob or Donnie?
I don't care. Either one. Nobody cares.
Somebody needs to call Jinx.
Mr. Moffett?
Yes.
Mr. Ritzma?
Yes.
Mr. Tavernier?
Yes.
Mr. Hawley?
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes. Based on testimony presented here today at the Area Board of Zoning Appeals, after careful consideration, find this variance approved or granted, however you want to say it, and we'll issue this in writing finding of the facts. Number 7.
Location 19101 Osborne Road, Robert and Dorothy Sawyer. Requested action. Variances, 1, from section 154.092 sub A to allow a lot area of 2.76 acres where 20 acres is required for Lot 2 of a proposed 2-lot subdivision. 2, from section 154.092 sub D to allow a side east yard setback of 15 feet for existing agriculture building on Lot 2 of a proposed 2-lot subdivision. And 3, from section 154.092 sub A to allow a lot area of 3.19 acres where a minimum of 20 acres is required for Lot 1 of a proposed 2-lot subdivision. Zoning A, Agricultural District, County.
This is a proposed Lot 2 of the same subdivision. Staff recommends approval for all the reasons previously stated.
Okay. Who do we got? We got our petitioner out there. I'm guessing it's Terry again.
Yes, it is. Terry Lang from Lang Feeney, address 715 South Michigan Street. And I think we've said enough at the previous petition, so everybody understands what we're doing. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions, guys? I didn't think so. You got a question?
I just have an observation. This piece west of 31 looks like it's landlocked.
It is. I mean, it already is. When the state came through, they landlocked it. So, I mean, this isn't really going to have any impact on that one way or another.
Yeah. What are you gonna do? Not us to decide, I guess. That's what I've been told. I brought up landlocked pieces before, and it's not us to decide, which got me. Okay. We heard from the petitioner. Is there anybody that would like to speak out for or against in the public session? Nobody online?
No one
Nobody
online.
in the gallery? Okay, public session's closed. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the request for the property located at 19101 Osborne Road as presented.
Second.
We got a second? Can we have a vote?
Mr. Moffett?
Yes.
Mr. Tavernier?
Yes.
Mr. Hawley?
Yes.
Mr. Ritzma?
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes. Based on testimony presented here today, the Area Board of Zoning Appeals carefully considers and finds the, what do you want to call it, the petition granted, and will issue it in writing, finding of the facts. Okay. Number 8.
Location 101 North Michigan Street. Owner Dennis Denninger. Requested action. 1, from section 4.34 sub C to allow a 0-foot front south and east parking setback where 15-foot is required, and 2, from section 4.34 sub B to allow a 32-foot front east setback where a maximum of 15-foot is permitted for an existing building. Zoning TC Town Center, Lakeville.
Okay, Ryan Fellows, Area Plan Commission staff. This agenda item and the next one are both linked together, very similar to the previous case. The petitioner hired Langfien Associates to redraw the division lines here between these lots. There's a shared driveway on the north side of this property that's shared with the property to the north that has the home on it. And the new property line will more closely follow the driveway line. So the setbacks that have been in these buildings have been long in existence. And here's a few pictures showing, this is the side street along the south side of this property. You see that this building comes up right to the corner with the sidewalk there. And then here's a picture from the back, looking towards the front, towards, in the background is Michigan Street. And then here's what the proposed replat would look like with the new lot lines. And there's a little bit closer view of it, but you can see where all the different setback lines are for this property and for the next petition's property. And due to this being an existing building, with the existing situation, this is just kind of formalizing an existing situation. So therefore, staff recommends approval of these variances. I'd be happy to go into any more details. And also, Terry Lang from Lang Feeney Associates is available to present on behalf of the petitioner.
Okay. I'm guessing, who do we got? Terry again? Okay, Terry.
Terry Lang from Lang Feeney and Associates. Ryan summed it up. The owner owns both of these parcels, and the tenant that had been leasing the liquor store located at the corner has made a purchase agreement with the owner and had asked that the driveway located on the north side of the liquor store be included with the parcel. The petition before you will reconfigure the parcel to allow that to happen. And then we're providing access easement for the residential home to the site then to the north to be able to access their garage and carports located to the rear of the house. This is being done so that both parcels can be sold with this new configuration.
Okay. Any questions, guys? Pretty cut and dried. Okay, we'll open up the public session for anybody that'd like to speak for or against. Since there's nobody here, is there anybody online?
No.
No one online. So I guess we'll close the public session. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve petition number 8.
I'll second.
Okay. Can we have a vote?
Mr. Hawley?
Yes.
Mr. Moffett?
Yes.
Mr. Tavernier?
Yes.
Mr. Ritzma?
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes, based on testimony presented here today, the area Board of Zoning Appeals has carefully considered finding the variance be granted and will use issued in writing finding of the facts. Okay, number 9, excuse me.
Location 105 North Michigan Street. Owner Dennis A. Dininger. Requested action, variances, 1, from section 4.34 sub B to allow a side south setback of 4 feet where a minimum of 5 feet is required. 2, from section 4.34 sub B to allow a 25-foot front east setback where a maximum of 15 feet is permitted for an existing building. And 3, from section 4.34 sub C to allow a side south parking setback of 0 foot where 5 foot is required. Zoning, TC, Town Center, Lakeville.
The staff report for this one is just like the staff report for the previous one. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Your turn, Terry.
Terry Lang, Lang Feeney and Associates, 715 South Michigan Street here in South Bend, represent the petitioners. And I gave my presentation on the previous one. So Any additional questions, I'd be happy to answer.
No questions? Open it up to the public session. I'm guessing nobody online
No.
to speak for or against? Okay, we'll close the public session. Do I have a vote?
I'll make a motion that we approve the petition for 105 North Michigan Street, Lakeville, Indiana, as presented.
We got a second, Mr. Jim. Can we have a vote, please?
Mr. Ritzma?
Yes.
Mr. Tavernier?
Yes.
Mr. Hawley?
Yes.
Mr. Moffett?
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes. Based on testimony presented here today, the Area Board of Zoning Appeals carefully, after careful consideration, finds this variance granted and will issue in writing finding of the facts. I guess that's about it, isn't it?
Thank you.
There's
You're welcome, Terry.
there's a couple of items.
Speaking of finding of the facts, I'd like to make a motion to approve the findings of the facts, all 6 of them, for the Wednesday, November 10th, 2021 Board of Zoning Appeals meeting.
Second.
Second.
Okay.
Somebody second?
We already seconded.
Yeah, do it.
All right, we don't need a vote. We yea or nay this one, right?
Who seconded it?
You need a vote, you just don't need to roll call it.
Brian, did you have a question about it, or no?
No.
No, okay.
You just need to call all in favor, say yes.
Oh, what?
You say, all in favor, say yes.
Oh, all in favor, say yes?
Yeah.
All right.
Any opposed?
Any opposed?
Nay.
Moving on to minutes.
You what now?
I'll make a motion that we accept the minutes that were presented for the October 13th, 2021 meeting of the Area Board of Zoning Appeals, as written.
Do we have a second?
Jim seconded. He's just soft-spoken.
Yeas? We accepting the yeas?
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Yeah. All opposed?
One more item,
One more item.
2022 calendar.
Oh, calendar.
Second Wednesday of the month, right?
Yes,
All right,
that's correct.
Sydney's in.
Okay, second Wednesday of the month. All yay?
Hey,
I think
You
that
have
we
to
need
make
a motion and
a
approve.
second.
Make a motion in a second.
I'll make a motion on the 2022 calendar for second Wednesday of the month.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Anybody want to close the meeting?
I make a motion to approve the closing of the meeting.
There you go. All in favor?
Oh, my-
Aye.
There you go.
That was a wild ride, gentlemen. Thank you for a great 2021.
We made it.
Great job, man.
Compared to what?
Compared to last time.
Who was having fun last month? Who was having fun last month?
We made it to the end.